Hello, hello. I am so excited for today's podcast episode. So, we are really going to talk about how to show up on Instagram when you do not have the energy, right? Whether that is because you're feeling anxious, you're feeling depressed, you don't like how you look that day. I recently shared about a month ago now on Instagram that I am pregnant with my first. I was feeling pretty bad a lot of days in the first trimester, right? Maybe you are going through that. Maybe life is lifing. There are lots and lots of reasons why you are going to have days where you just do not have your all to give to Instagram. And so I really want to talk about how you can show up continuously despite that, ways to make content creation easier on those low energy days. And then also what to do if you're like, Kelly, thank you for the hacks, but I simply cannot today. We're going to talk through that as well. Because the reality is that no matter how ambitious you are, no matter how committed you are to growing your Instagram page and filling your caseload, every single person has tough days. That is inevitable, right? We are all going to feel burnt out sometimes. We are all going to get sick or, just have a day. And that is a universal experience that we all share, right? There's no kind of getting around those situations. And so I really want us to figure out how can we kind of keep moving forward? How can we keep committed to our goals and also recognize and honor that, we have a life and we are human beings and we aren't robots, right? So let's get into it. The first thing I want to share is that consistency matters a lot more than perfection, right? I don't want you to get into the habit of just posting to post and putting like unthought through trash up on social media because it's not going to do you a ton in terms of growing your following or building loyalty with your audience or having them get to know you and like you and trust you. Like in general, we do need to put a little bit of effort into our Instagram account if we want to see results there. But what matters more than coming up with the perfect post or having the most perfect B roll or the perfect script for your talking head reel or the most, catchy edits with your video is really being consistent. And by being consistent, I mean showing up frequently, but I also mean being consistent with your messaging, being consistent with who you are when you show up, how you show up, all of that. And so if you are having a day, I want you to ask yourself, what is the easiest thing that you can do today to stay visible on Instagram? Now, I want to give you an example. So, in February of this year, I was in the middle of a launch for the Private Practice Academy bundle, and I did not have content planned in advance as I usually like to. But during launches, I am very committed. Like these are 10 days where I'm going to show up and I'm going to post in feed and in stories no matter what, because it is my like sort of sprint season, right? Now, I'm in the middle of my first trimester during this launch, and I just did not have it in me. But I was like, I need to post something. I need to get my messaging out there for people. I was also at the stage of first trimester where like no vegetables sounded good. My husband was making salads for me every day for lunch, as that's what we usually eat. And I was like, I don't want to look at that. Thank you. And would move on to like comfort food, whether that was chicken nuggets, French fries, a grilled cheese, or what have you. And so that day, he made me a cheese quesadilla as a snack because I needed, second lunch there. And I filmed a B-roll of me eating this quesadilla, and I put text on top that said, I'm a therapist eating a cheesy quesadilla on camera, and I'm still going to make more money than the therapist too afraid to start their Instagram account. It was very low effort for me to film this reel. It was really low effort for me to put that text on top, right? And then in the caption, I talked about, how showing up is important and how the Private Practice Academy bundle is going to help therapists do that. And this reel went pretty viral. I got 291,000 views, almost 8,000 likes, 64 comments of people like asking for the link for the PPA bundle. It did really, really well, right? And it literally took me like 10 minutes to come up with the idea, film it, edit it, and write the caption. And so this is just an example of kind of how you balance that pull between, I don't feel like doing this today, and I still also really want to show up because I care about my business and I care about, the outcomes that I'm getting here. And so that was it for me, right? During a launch, I usually like to be a little bit more thoughtful with my content. I usually like to plan ahead. That was just not happening for me in first trimester. I usually do a little bit less B-roll and I do a little bit more like high effort reels that I think will be a little catchier, a little faster edits, that kind of thing. But I was like, I don't need to do all that, right? I need to commit to myself. I need to show up, and that is it, right? And the results were super effective. So I share that to say, take that as an example that sometimes you can overcomplicate what is involved in posting, and it's okay to take the easy route. Now, I think the reason why this worked really well is because my message was still really, really clear and specific, right? I'm going to read you the text from the B-roll again. So it says, I'm a therapist eating a cheesy quesadilla on camera, and I'm still going to make more money than the therapist too afraid to start their Instagram account. So I was super specific in that I'm speaking to therapists. I was super specific, eating a cheesy quesadilla on camera, right? It's a little embarrassing. It's really specific. It's like a little funny. And then I was a little controversial, right? I called therapists out and really called them into my program by saying, I'm still going to make more money than the therapist who's too afraid to start their Instagram account. And so for all the therapists who are watching my content and thinking like, oh my gosh, Kelly, your goals, they might feel like a little bit of something when they see that, right? And it's also motivating. It helps people to see exactly the point of this podcast episode, that it does not need to be super complicated, right? The biggest mindset oftentimes is us getting out of our head is really the hardest part of actually showing up and creating good content. So when you do all this, when you are able to find sort of the easier ways to stay consistent, you're really helping the algorithm understand that you are committed to putting out content, you are showing up, you are a good creator, you have an engaged community, and that is helping the algorithm to continue to show your content to more people. It's also showing your audience who you are, right? Sometimes the least thought out pieces of content, the most imperfect pieces, the ones where you're wearing the least makeup, you have the typos, it's you in your natural habitat, your natural state, right? That is what builds connection with your audience. They're able to see you show up imperfectly as a real human on the other end of the screen. So please give yourself a little bit of a break with that you do not always have to be super polished as a therapist, and that oftentimes your clients want to know you are a real human just like them. Now, I'm going to share some other ideas for minimal effort post. So, first is sort of like repurposing past content. So, one thing that I do often is repurpose previous carousels or graphics that I created in Canva. And this can be as simple as literally reposting the same thing with the same caption. Sometimes I'll change the background color on it a little bit. Sometimes I have a virtual assistant on my team. That's definitely a great hack if you're somebody who has low effort days kind of continuously. That's probably a podcast episode for another day. But typically you can hire a virtual assistant for anywhere between $20 and $30 an hour, and they can create stuff in Canva for you, right? So maybe you have them take a multi-part reel and repurpose that into a Canva carousel, and you can use the same caption that you did for your reel and kind of present the information in a new way. But repurposing content is huge because it takes out this need to sort of like ideate and come up with what am I going to say. And you're able to reuse the caption, you're able to reuse, the key messaging of the content. And you can either just literally repost it or repackage it into a different format. Another thing that is super popular lately and is a very low lift as a type of content is where you do a carousel post, and I'll link an example in the show notes here, where the first slide is a picture and you add some text on top. You can actually add the text within the Instagram app itself now. And then the second and maybe the third slide of the carousel is a screenshot from your notes app. So I will share an example here. I did a picture of me. This I posted January 16th. It was a picture that, I had one of my friends take of me by the pool on New Year's Eve when I was all dressed up. And I put text on top that said, why I'll never be friends with my clients as a licensed therapist. And then when you swiped, it was a list in my notes app with like 6 or 7 reasons why I wouldn't be friends with my clients as a therapist. And this idea I came up with was, again, very low energy day. I don't think I knew it at the time, but I think I was pregnant then. And I had done a reel previously, like back in 2020, where I was doing like a little TikTok dance at the time when those were really popular. That was my kind of style of content. I was doing a little TikTok dance on Instagram, and I had kind of like the different reasons popping up on screen of why I'll never be friends with my clients as a licensed therapist. And I was just kind of scrolling through, like, I'm not coming up with an idea today. Let me go way back in the archives and see what I can pull here. And I decided, okay, great. This is super easy. Let me type up this text that was in this reel previously and repurpose it as a post in this format. And it did super well. It got 44,000 views, over 1,000 likes, 42 comments, over 200 saves. So it did really, really well, right? So this is another kind of combo tip, right? Take the easy effort content in terms of like creating. It's super easy to take a picture and add text and screenshot from the Notes app. And then also you can even combine that tip with repurposing content from a different format. Another really easy thing to do when you have a low energy day is take B-roll and add text on top. So this is very similar to the quesadilla example I gave, which I will also link in the show notes for you. But take clips that you already have filmed, right? It doesn't need to be something new, and just add a trending sound and add some text on top, and you are good to go. In terms of stories, those can also be really helpful. Even though you're not reaching new people, they're really good for nurturing your audience. On days where I'm like, I told myself I was going to show up in stories today, but I do not have it in me, I just take a picture of anything and I'll add some text on top. That can feel a lot easier for me than getting face to camera and actually like talking and yapping on stories, right? I can do that from my couch. I can do that in bed. I can do that with my hair a mess. I can do that when I'm green in the face because I have nauseous or whatever, right? You don't need to be on. You can take a picture that doesn't have you in it. It could be, your TV, a book you're reading, your dog, your backyard, whatever, right? And put text on top. That's where you're kind of building that engagement with folks. Something else that you can do is like engagement focused stories, right? So use polls, do a Q&A box, and ask your audience questions, right? Keep them engaged with you. Do a little ask me anything. Those I love on a day where I'm like, I'm barely going to do work today. I'm going to sit on the couch and I'm going to, talk with my people, but basically over text message, and really still build community and build that engagement and loyalty with my audience. So those are just some examples of really easy content ideas that you can create, that you can implement on the days where you are feeling low energy and you do not have a plan. The other thing I really want to talk about in today's episode is sort of planning to have these days, right? This is going to happen, as we talked about in the beginning. This is just part of the human experience. And so plan ahead and give yourself a little grace, give yourself a little wiggle room, give yourself a little support. So that way you are able to create content without feeling like you always have to be on or you are always on the hamster wheel. So I'll share a few different things that I do here. One thing is I will DM from like my personal account to my business account or vice versa, any reels or carousels that I like, whether that is about a specific topic, if it was the format or structure that they used, if it was just something I thought was funny, if it was a trending sound, etc. And I will just DM it to myself. If I have a specific thought of how I want to use it when I'm scrolling and I come across it in the moment, I'll write that down in the DM I send to myself. But sometimes it's just as simple as sending the DM. And that's really helpful because then on days where I'm like, I have no idea what to post, I can just go to my DM thread with myself and scroll and try and find some inspiration, right? And that is time where I'm not working. I'm like scrolling purely for fun as a passive consumer, but I am just paying attention. And if I'm like, oh, I like that, I'll send that to myself. So I kind of have some inspiration saved away. Also, definitely recommend keeping like a journal or a notes app or something where you are able to write down content ideas or themes or anything like that after session. So that way you just have, a list of things that you can pull from when you are looking at these content ideas, right? That you've kind of DM'd to yourself and saying, okay, how can I kind of plug this in with my niche? What are things that people are talking about? Something else that I think is really, really helpful is batching when you do have the energy, right? So this is definitely something I took advantage of in first trimester. On the days where I felt good, I was like, okay, great. I'm going to bang out my content for the week. I'm going to plan ahead the next 2 weeks of content. I'm going to be productive while I kind of have this energy today because I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, right? And so having some time set aside, having some flexibility in your calendar to be able to batch and to plan ahead can be super, super helpful. Something else is really like organizing your content so that way it's easy to reuse and repurpose. So I've used for many years a Google Sheet Recently, I kind of moved over to something called Airtable, which is basically like a fancier Google Sheet, but truly a Google Sheet is just fine. It's what I give all the folks inside of Private Practice Academy bundle as like their content planning bank. And I really, really, really suggest doing this so you can make it yourself. You can have, what is a text that's going to go into the reels or into the Canva carousels in one column. And then I suggest having the caption in another column. If you want to get fancy and add, some content pillars, or you want to add the type of content it is, if it's a reel or a post or whatever, you can do all that as well. But I really, really suggest having one place where you can easily use the little like Command F feature and search through your previous content, right? So that way, if you have a content idea about body image, you can do Command F and find what are all the previous times I talked about body image. What's a previous caption I can reuse here? What's a text from an old reel I can reuse? And it's just a lot easier. I know if you're in the beginning stages, you might still kind of remember every piece of content you did, or you might not have like that far to scroll back on your Instagram page. But I've created like thousands of pieces of content now for both my Sit with Kelly and Business of Therapy account. And it is so nice to have a bank where I can reuse and repurpose ideas from. It is so, so, so helpful. One other thing I will say in terms of like planning for that inevitable hard day is getting support, right? So if you have been in the Instagram thing for, I would say, 2 or 3 months, if you are making any money from Instagram, meaning if you are getting any clients from Instagram, if you have any clients on your caseload, period, I truly think that investing in hiring a virtual assistant can be so incredibly helpful. Your time as a therapist is worth a lot of money. Let's say $150, $200, $250 per hour, right? And so if you can hire someone for $25 an hour who can make your graphics in Canva for you, who can keep this content bank organized, who can help write captions, right? That's just a way to get support and not feel like it is always on you. Who can hit post on, those posts or reels that you guys are coming up with. It just sort of helps to spread that responsibility and not feel like everything is on you every day, always creating. Lastly, I will say you have permission to take a break, right? If you are an overachiever like me, you may not believe me when I say this, but taking a break does not mean that you are a failure. Truly, you are allowed to take a break, whether that is for a day, whether it's for a few days, a week. You are allowed to take a short pause, and Instagram is not going to like put you in jail for it. Your community is not going to forget about you. You are allowed to do this. And, this was really hard for me in the beginning. I'm somebody who's very black and white with things. I think that probably goes with my flavor of anxiety. But I promised myself when I started posting on Instagram that I was going to post every single day for a year. And I did. Um, I actually posted every day for quite more than a year, but I went on my honeymoon in November 2021. I started my Instagram page in October 2020. So it was like 13 months into the whole Instagram thing. And I took off like 6 weeks of work for my wedding and honeymoon. I took off like the week before my wedding. Then I went like down to Florida and did my whole wedding situation. That was like another week. Then we did like a mini moon in the Keys, and we did like 3 weeks in South Africa. It was absolutely amazing. Then I gave myself like a week to come back and recover. But so I took off like 6 weeks. It was truly, truly amazing. But I planned to have content go out on my Sit with Kelly account every single day for those 6 weeks. So it was a lot of hustle before the wedding of filming all these reels, having all the posts lined up, having all the captions. And it was fine. Like part of me is glad I did it because I think it just helped to like build that muscle memory, I guess. But it was unnecessary. Like I wasn't getting new therapy clients at that time. I didn't need to have November be a month where my Instagram following was growing. I probably could have gotten away with doing 2 posts a week or something and still really having an engaged audience and engaged community without having to put in so much work. Right. And so now that I am 4 years into this Instagram thing, I've been way more flexible, right? When I travel, I will often do like 2 posts a week instead of 5. On my Sit with Kelly page now, it's much less a revenue driver for my business than the Business of Therapy page. I usually just post 3 times a week, period. I'm not trying to post every day there anymore. Um, you know, I've just been able to be a lot more relaxed with it. And I think that part of that comes from, yes, my Instagram pages are stable now. They're not needing to be in this period of like high growth all the time. And also just recognizing like truly nothing bad is going to happen if you have a day where your Instagram page doesn't grow, or you have a week where it doesn't grow, or a month where it doesn't grow, right? In reality, what we want to try and do is stay consistent, and consistent can mean showing up more days than you don't. It doesn't need to mean like showing up every single day no matter what without fail. So pick a goal for yourself. I would encourage you to make it like sort of a stretchy goal, right? I wouldn't probably start off if you were growing your page from scratch with a goal like posting 3 times a week. Try and post, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 days a week, but give yourself flexibility to not meet that goal all the time, to give yourself flexibility that some weeks it's okay to just do the 3 times, or sometimes it's okay to skip a week when you're off or whatever. That can just be so helpful. And really, I think what's most important is staying with it for the long term. And I don't want to see you like burn yourself out, set your goals too big, and take months off at a time, or 3 weeks off at a time or whatever, because that's truly when I do see you start to lose some steam with your Instagram. Your engagement starts to fall. It gets harder to sort of rebuild after that. Okay, so I know we covered a lot in today's episode. We talked about how to keep showing up on Instagram, even when you're exhausted, sick, you're having a bad day. So I hope that you will take some of these easy content ideas and implement them. I really would also encourage you to set time in your calendar to batch create content, stock up some drafts, have some content in your backlog, ready to go, ready to repurpose, ready to use. And if you're looking for more support in marketing your private practice without burning out, I would also definitely recommend checking out the Reels membership. So inside the Reels membership, I will tell you exactly what to post every single Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern. And some of these reels are like easy lip syncing reels. Some of them are B-roll prompts. Some of them are where you talk face to camera. But it will just make it so much easier for you to show up on those days where you don't have energy, where you are like, I don't know what to post, I don't have ideas. I will do that for you, right? And so if all your task is for that day is like lip sync to this 7-second audio and add text on top following this exact framework, it just makes it so much easier. So definitely, I recommend joining that membership as a way to sort of plan ahead, give yourself more grace, and take off some of the burden of Instagram. So I will include that link for you in the show notes as well. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for listening with me.